Let's move on to something I am just so happy to be able to report to all of you. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. The TSA, the hall monitors, will stop enforcing the traveler mask mandate. All 4 airlines came out and said they will no longer require masks on planes. The news actually broke in the middle of the day, and there were videos circulating online of pilots and of flight attendants actually breaking down in tears, being able to take their mask off for the first time in 2 years. People were cheering. They were celebrating, Krystal. The circumstances of this, I will admit, are a little weird. So let's go through what actually happened. Now, a federal judge in Florida on Monday struck down the mandate. U.S. District Judge Catherine Kimball Mazel said that the CDC and prevention exceeded its statutory authority and had failed to properly justify its decision. The suit was initially filed last July by the Health Freedom Defense Fund. Now, per the ruling, the fund is a nonprofit organization that doesn't want to force people to do this, and the court declares because our system does not permit agencies to act unlawfully, even in pursuit of a desirable end, the court declares it unlawful and vacates the mask mandate on travel. The CDC, now for context, it actually extended that mandate until May 3rd for planes, buses, trains, and transit hubs which come under federal authority. Now, it does come into question here of whether the White House is going to fight for this decision. They came out and said this. Here's what Jen Psaki said. This comes out this afternoon. Right now, the DHS, who would be implementing this, and the CDC are reviewing the decision. The Department of Justice will make any determinations about litigation. They are assessing it right now, and as soon as they have an assessment and an update, they will make that available. She did call this, quote, an obviously disappointing decision. Now, if they were smart, they would just let it die and not pursue it. However, I don't know if the freaks in the CDC will allow that to happen. At the same time, we have seen a complete, we have seen a complete sea change in the last 24 hours. Just this morning, Krystal, Uber announced it will no longer be enforcing the mask mandate in all of its cars. So also, thank God, in terms of that one, you see Uber, all 4 major airlines coming out and saying that. In addition, not only the TSA, but Amtrak, let's put this up there on the screen, ends its mask mandate because that's also governed by federal law. The only people bucking are the MTA in New York City. So sorry for all of the people who live in New York and still have to ride Jersey Transit and the LIRR. You guys still have to wear masks. Of course, the city of Philadelphia still requires masks. So I kind of put it this way, which is that I think that this is the final death, really, of the COVID regime in terms of its national politics and the way that it affects us. Does that mean that private crazy institutions, like, I don't know if you know this, every university here in Washington currently has a mask mandate. GW, American University, and Georgetown because of rising case levels. And if you look at the city of Philadelphia, many private institutions, I think Stanford, I have a friend who goes there, he was telling me that the mask mandate is in effect in classrooms. Will there be limited instances in like hyper-liberal spaces? Yes. But in terms of the way that it touches everyday American life, I think it's over. I mean, at this point, all 50 states no longer have mask mandates, indoor and outdoor. Like I said, some will come back on limited localities, but the travel one was the main way, especially because it applied to trains, buses, and pretty much all public transportation. That is the one where people still had to kind of, engage with some of these ridiculous rules, and it's finally over. The mass theater is dead.
The trucker convoy won. No, just kidding. They had nothing to do
That's
with
a good take. That's a good take.
I'm sure joking. They'll claim victory.
Although they were a pain in the ass when they came to DC. I'm gonna be honest, it was sucked.
But that's the reason it's funny and a joke is because by the time they protested, it was all already over. I mean, Biden basically declared this war over in his State of the Union speech. We talked about it. The COVID part of the State of the Union speech, it barely even got notice because it had already fallen off of the map for a lot of Americans in terms of their top priority. So there was very little discussion about what he said about COVID in his speech ultimately. It was like, what is it? Gallup said there's like 3% of Americans that say COVID policy.
And they all live here in Washington.
Is still their number one priority. So, I've been occasionally sort of irritated with there's been a lot of like fear mongering, like the lockdowns are coming back and they're going to do it again. And I just don't see that and haven't seen that as a realistic possibility for a long time because ultimately, public opinion had really moved. It's a very different landscape now that you have vaccinations widely available. And look, people should feel comfortable if they want to wear a mask on a plane,
go
if they
be
want
my
to wear a
guest.
mask on a train, do it. You know, if that makes sense for you, if it's just like a level of comfort, or if you just want to be like sort of anonymous and have a mask on your face, which I kind of enjoy sometimes, go for it. But, you know, I would actually be a little bit surprised if the Biden administration does decide to fight this in the courts.
I think they might do it.
I think they'll put up some sort of like, you know, like she said, this is disappointing and we're going to look at it. I think they'll sort of say some of those things and then kind of quietly let it go.
Yep.
Because this is not what they want to focus on right now either. I mean, Biden, in his State of the Union speech, made it very clear, like, we need to, you know, one of his things that's sort of irritating is like, get back in the office. I don't really agree with that. If people are happy doing remote work and they're just as productive, I have no issue with that whatsoever. But certainly, we need to be in schools, we need to be back to work, we need to be getting back to normal, given the fact that the vaccines work, that they have been incredibly effective, and that they are widely available to anyone who ultimately wants to get them. So, we'll see what the Biden administration does with this, but I would actually be a little bit surprised if they decide to fight this in the courts.
I hope you're right, but I think you're wrong. I think that they are. I just think you can't underestimate the level of COVID insanity all the way up there at the top. I mean, with Fauci and his own advisors, the fact that they even renewed this thing for 2 weeks is nuts. Their doctor saying, yeah, it's absolutely on the table in order to extend it, and I just don't know. I think the level of craziness.
You also thought we'd be wearing masks forever.
I was wrong
on planes, and you also were very concerned about new lockdowns and a lot of things that haven't really come to pass.
You are 100% correct.
I think you've overestimated. Listen, there are people in the administration who are certainly sort of infected with brain worms about COVID, no doubt about it. But I think Biden himself has enough of a normie sense that he's clearly signaled we're moving in a different direction now. So we'll see.
I pray you are correct.
We will see.
Although I know my neighbors and they will riot.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.